Architects, pull up your Eames chair, put on those black spectacles, and pour yourself a piping hot cup of strong black coffee, because we're about to delve into unfiltered conversations with architects from all over the world, discussing all things health and wellness. So if you're an architect that's been searching for more balance, more fulfillment, and more overall health and happiness, turn up your hearing aids just a notch, because we've got the answers. I'm your host, Morgan 𝗙𝗥𝗘𝗘, a licensed architect, stress management consultant, and founder of The Healthy Architect. Grab your trace paper and let's dive in. Before we dive into this episode, I want to take a quick minute to tell you about the Wellness Hub for Architects. The Wellness Hub is a virtual platform of health, wellness, and stress management micro classes designed and curated specifically for architects by architects. The best part? All of the classes are 15 minutes or less and are designed to be completed during your workday. That's right, you get paid to take these classes. Are you an architect preparing to walk into an OAC meeting and you're feeling the stress and anxiety build up because the contractor might throw you under the bus again? Well, complete a 5-minute class for architects to help that stress drip off of you so you can walk into that OAC meeting calm and confident. Are you an architect sitting behind your screen all day designing in Revit and your shoulders are inching closer and closer to your ears with built-up tension? We've got the answer. Complete a 10-minute desk yoga class for architects to allow your shoulders just to drop 1/8 of an inch. You're going to feel so much better afterwards, I promise. This is just a small glance into the Wellness Hub for architects. The Wellness Hub is for you if you're an architect who wants to be healthier, happier, calmer, with less stress, and more creativity. Join other architects from all around the world in the Wellness Hub for architects for only $39 a month. And because I appreciate my podcast listeners so very much, I'm offering 25% off the first 25 architects that use coupon code The Healthy Architect Podcast, all capitalized. I'll see you, healthy architects, in the Wellness Hub. Now let's get back to the episode you've all been waiting for. Hello, Laurel. Welcome to the Healthy Architect Podcast.
Hi, Morgan. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Laurel Chadzynski is the mother of a 2.5-year-old boy, is the director of Parallel Sustainability, VP of Engagement at Mindful Materials, sustainable design leader at Dyer, Brown & Associates, a licensed architect, and one of my dear, dear friends. Is there anything else I can add to that list, Laurel?
Ooh, I think that's it.
I don't even know if I can get that out in one breath.
It's a lot of things. I wear many hats.
You wear many hats, and I would love to talk about that because I think that's such an interesting topic. But it's worthy to note, I want to let my audience know that you also work a 4-day work week. Is that correct?
Yes, I try to. Definitely work slips into Fridays a little bit, but I try to keep it to 4 days a week.
Yeah, so tell me about that a little bit. Like, did you always work a 4-day work week, or what was the transition to?
Definitely not. I definitely experienced burnout and kind of had to raise my hand and say, hey, I need to step back a little bit. I also stopped having my childcare arrangement changed, and I no longer had childcare on Fridays. And so that kind of necessitated it as well. But I think my employers at the time, understood that I was working hard. I cared very much about my job. I was an asset to the organization, but I also couldn't, keep going as much as I was going. And so I said, I need to kind of step back. I need to figure out a scenario where I can work 32 hours. And I was very lucky and very grateful to have 2 really great employers who were also mothers and licensed, in one case, licensed architect. But anyway, yeah, I was able to work it out with my employers, and it's been since November. So 6 months that I've been on a 4-day work week and going well. It's hard to maintain that boundary and not work on Fridays. But
Yeah, well, let's talk about that because I think I have a lot of my one on one clients. I help them transition and negotiate for reduced hours or hybrid location. So let's talk about your experience in going from a full time to a 4-day work week. And let's rewind a little bit and talk about your burnout. Are you comfortable with talking about that?
yeah, yeah. I think my position's a little bit unique because I wasn't working, at the time that I was experiencing burnout, I actually wasn't working in just a traditional architecture role. I had kind of created a position for myself at the firm that I was working, Dyer Brown, and was navigating that and wasn't managing projects at this point full time. I had kind of moved completely off managing projects. I also had just had a baby. So I basically, after having my son, I went right back to work for a new job essentially 3 months later. And this new job was with a nonprofit that I had been volunteering for many years and was very passionate about the work that this organization was doing. And so I jumped at the chance to kind of join as an employee there, but that meant coming back from maternity leave into basically like nonprofit startup culture right at 3 months postpartum. But I loved what I did and I was so passionate about it that I kind of powered through. And then I think 6 or 7 months postpartum, I went back to work at the architecture firm as well. So I was juggling 2 jobs, and each of them was 20 hours a week. I'm doing air quotes. But obviously, like we work in architecture for 40 hours a week, air quotes, like it's your quote unquote 9 to 5, but like who's working 9 to 5?
Yeah. So in all the virtual courses I've been creating lately, I always say, integrate healthy habits into your quote unquote 9 to 5. So
Yeah.
yes,
You have
air
to,
quotes
it's on the podcast platform, you have to have that like a verbal asterisk.
there. So, you said something, you just said, I was so passionate about what I do. Both of us are very passionate people. You're a very passionate individual. Remind me before we end this podcast that we have to go back to our undergrad years. But that is something that I've had conversations with throughout my career, and especially with my husband. He came to me recently and said, "You're working on Saturdays." And I had to like delve deep and say, "Yeah, I'm really passionate about what I do." Right. And that sometimes means that we are overworking because we are so passionate about making a change in this world through architecture. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you found the courage and found the voice within and the words to use regarding your 4-day work week? And like, yes, you're passionate about something, but that doesn't mean that you have to dedicate every minute of your life to it.
I mean, I think I had to realize maybe this goes hand in hand with, I think you have this in common with me as well, but we always like want to give our best, but we also are so hard on ourselves that we kind of always feel like we could do better, and we always strive for perfect, but like with any design, it's never complete. You could always do better. Like you always are setting the bar super high for yourself. So there's almost this kind of guilt that comes along with that in an odd way. And so I had to get over that guilt and realize that, I was doing a good job. I was performing well. I was working well with my teams. I was mentoring others. There was nothing like negative about, I was only an asset to my organizations. And so I had to realize that, and again, I think that, I was lucky. I wasn't disposable to either of these organizations. And sometimes when you are in a role where, not for your own fault, but like where you are seen as disposable, you're not going to be able to have those negotiations and you're not going to be able to be successful in them. But if you are in an organization where you do feel that you're not going to be easy to replace, then that also helps for sure. But I think realizing that they have more to lose by losing you than by losing 8 hours of your time or by losing a chunk of your time, right? Like I'm still working a lot, you know? It's one day.
Yeah, one day at a time, right? And here's another message too, if you are disposable, then find somewhere where you're not.
Exactly.
Find somewhere that values you enough that you're not disposable and that you align with that organization.
Exactly. I think that, if you are happy to go to work each day and happy to work with the people that you work with, like, if that's not the case for you, then you should find somewhere else. Like, that's, I think, a baseline in my scenario that I think is one of the things that makes it my scenario unique. So I certainly can't say everybody you can just do what I did, but the fact that I work for my bosses in this case are two women who, and one has children, two professional women who, care about and respect the people that they work with and value relationships and value family and know that like we as individuals are more than just our jobs and like this is business, but we also have to take care of ourselves and our families, right? And so the architecture firm that I work at is 80% women, and there's a lot of young moms there that are juggling parenting and, having multiple kids, and people have flexible schedules. The company understands. So the message I would say from that is like, if you're a female architect, you need to get yourself into the position where you can be helping other female architects say, yes, let me empower you to take a 4-day work week and maybe even leading by example.
Always. Yes. That's one thing that I definitely preach is like the reason I try to put my best foot forward is so hopefully the females that are younger than me won't have to go through what I've been through. That it will be easier one day for them, I hope, right? And it definitely hits different, or I don't know if it hits differently, but it definitely hits when you're a mother of daughters, you know?
I bet. Yeah.
So, like, for instance, breastfeeding at an architectural office, 2 architectural offices that I worked at, one of them had I don't think they'd ever had a mother architect that was breastfeeding, right? So I needed to
Uh-huh.
pave that way. I needed to make sure that was in the policy in the handbook. So when my daughter gets there, she won't have to have those conversations, I'm hoping, if she decides to breastfeed, that is.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanna go back. Laurel, we could stay here for hours, but I wanna go back.
Yeah, I was gonna say breastfeeding is a whole nother topic.
I
I
know,
don't know if that's the topic you want to dive into here, but we could talk about that for quite some time too, I'm sure.
that's podcast number 257.
Bookmark that note so we can come back.
Yeah, really, write that on the calendar. I want to talk to you about the text message you sent me earlier today.
Oh, what did I say?
You sent me a text message that said, "I'm not sure," or I could pull it up if you want me to
Oh,
use the exact
yeah, yeah.
verbiage, but you get it. You said, "I'm not sure I'm the right person to be on your podcast right now, the Healthy Arc
Yeah.
podcast." And I immediately knew that you were because I know you. And but I want to hear like what was going through your mind when you before you sent that text.
Oh, just like I think that we all kind of go through, and I said right now, like not just never, but I
Yeah.
think we all
Yeah,
go
yeah.
through kind of ups and downs. And, we have times, I've had times when I'm like the best version of myself. I'm getting up at like 5 a.m. every day, working out for an hour, like eating super healthy, meditating, like just really savoring my life. And then I have times when I'm just like powering through, work is crazy, I'm traveling. It's just like life is very hectic and I don't have that healthy routine kind of underpinning my days. And so that's where I am now. I'm not in the,
Mhm.
best version of myself, healthiest habits like moment. So yeah, I guess I can be here to for all
Yeah.
of your listeners who are at their not their best point right now in solidarity.
Which is if I waited for every architect to be at their best time to come on this podcast, we would never do a podcast. It'd never get done, right? I mean, honestly, there aren't that many architects out there that are healthy and that prioritize their health, in my opinion, and based on my experience, let's put it that
Yeah,
way. There might be a million that I just haven't found yet. And I'm excited to find those individuals and those architects.
I think they're not the majority.
They're not the majority, right? And the reason why I said, no, you have to come on today, or I really would appreciate if you came on today, is because that story that you just told, that means you're human, right? And architects are human and we go through waves. And even the healthy architect goes, you know more than anybody, Laurel, because you've been such a great friend for so many years, but goes through waves of like life is just hitting them in the face. And then they go through waves of being super healthy, hopefully. And a part of what I'm trying to do with the Healthy Architect is get architects and people in the architecture industry to realize that it doesn't have to be either of those. It can be somewhere in between. And for you to notice when you aren't being the healthiest and start implementing small habits every single day to get you back to a point to being a healthy architect, right? So, like, if you're telling me right now you're not the healthiest, you're not prioritizing health 100% right now in your life, which is nothing, that's just life, right? What are you going to do? Like, what's a small habit, easy habit that you can implement to getting one step closer to being the healthy architect that you sometimes are?
Definitely being outside. I'm outside right now. Thanks for bearing with me with my tech difficulties. But,
That's okay.
when I think about my daily things I'd like to do to be in my best version of myself, like being outside for a good portion of the day is always one of those, which is easier right now because the weather's nice and I have a good work setup. I can set up my desk outside, and getting outside as much as possible would be the number one first thing that I'm going to do.
And that changes your, or at least in my perspective, it changes my mentality when I'm outside. Like, even if just for 5 minutes, like 5 minutes between meetings, just walking outside.
Yeah, you absolutely inspired me with your like walk snacks, your concept of like walk snacks, like just, have a quick
A quickie.
5 minutes, 10 minutes
Right.
with you around the block.
Quickie around the block. I mean, I think that people like you and I are, we, tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I have this concept of myself where I go all in, like, or at least I used to. I used to say, like, if I'm gonna do it, I have to do it to the best. Like, if I'm gonna go outside, I'm gonna run a marathon. And it doesn't have to be that way, you know? Like, it can be small, actionable steps that make us healthier, like getting outside for 5 minutes, just a walk around the block. And once you do that so many times, it's just gonna become subconscious.
Yeah, and that 5 minutes, it's funny you say this. I was just reading something. I'm gonna have to look this up. But the study was about achieving quantum change. And it was a business, this is like a business strategy. And the idea is that instead of trying, in terms of change management approach to business, and instead of trying to go in and like totally restructure, just making these 15% changes, these little leverage points that really can just shift the context or like the circumstances in which you find yourself. And so, yeah, walk sex. It's that 15% like little a little thing that you can do that, because for me it's like I have 15 minutes in between meetings and I have a overflowing inbox and really long to-do list. And I'm like, I could knock off one thing off my to-do list and then go into my next meeting like late, off track, just not the best headspace already and feeling like I'm drowning, or I can take 5 minutes and go for a walk around the block and come back to this meeting with a clear head and, block out time to get back to my emails for an hour later. And, I'm probably not going to even get through that much, if anything, in that 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But instead, I could go outside and just like completely shift my perspective and come back with, some inspiration or
Yeah.
more just motivation and positive outlook for the rest of my day.
Yeah, clarity and focus and all the other things. You're inspiring me to, after this podcast, go on a walk, even though it's rainy here. But
Oh, no.
that's okay. I'm good with that. So tell me about your boundaries. You know, you were talking about your boundaries with your email. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I did turn off my this felt like such a revolutionary act. I turned off my email notifications on my phone. And I'm sure some people are just like, yeah, I would just never put my email notifications on my phone. But that's how I had it. At one point, it was also on my watch. You can imagine my stress levels then.
Oh, no.
But yeah, so like that was one thing, just kind of turning off my notifications. So I had to intentionally go look at my email and then kind of trying to break that habit of going to look at my email. It's almost as bad as social media, but just having that like instinct to check your inbox or check your feed. But yeah, and then also started blocking out an hour, like every Monday for an hour first thing in the week I've like blocked out. I'm never going to start my week off with a meeting. I'm always going to start off with like going through my emails, getting back to the main like high priority things, and just putting that time on my calendar.
Could you imagine yourself taking do you use Outlook?
Yeah,
Is that what you use for email? Could you imagine taking that app off of your phone?
I don't think I could do that.
That's too far, too far. Reel it back in.
Listen, turning off notifications was, again, revolutionary.
Maybe in like a year or two, I could come back and maybe you'll be ready for that.
I don't know.
Okay, that's so far out. Let's not talk about that. It sounds like you're not open to that at
I'm
all.
not. I'm not. I can't. Like, it's like if I was going on vacation, I could do it if I was going on vacation.
Tell me why you couldn't do it.
Just because I'm on the go a lot, and so if I'm
Okay,
traveling,
that's true.
yeah, if I'm traveling and like I mean, need to check my email to see where my hotel address is to go to get an Uber to the, hotel, like, and I can't check my email. I guess I could on a browser, but it's just the convenience of like, having it
Yeah,
when you need it. But if I was maybe like on the weekends or evenings, like if there was a way to just like, I guess you can limit access to an app so that you can say like, I'm pretty sure you can do
I
that.
don't know. I've never done that
I
before.
could limit the access to my app during certain hours. I think you can do it in screen time.
Maybe I should look into that. I'm gonna look into that after this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah. Me too.
that would be revolutionary for me. I mean, I always,
Yeah.
like I always say I'm not gonna use it or I'm gonna take it off my phone, but then I don't. But I check it after hours too. But I will say that I'm not to the point like I realize when my arrow is headed towards stress, too stressed, and
Yeah.
I know how to shift my arrow in another direction quickly.
That's a good skill to have.
Yeah. Oh, no. I've gotten to the point where, like, if my arrow is pointed anywhere near stress and burnout, I'm like, nope, we're reevaluating right now, right this
Uh,
second. Like, I won't even I'm like gun shy for my arrow to get pointed in that direction whatsoever. But I'm still super productive. I will say I'm like very productive every single day. I get a lot of work done.
I think you can like honestly, I think that when you limit your work time, there's a theory that like the task will expand or shrink to fill the time that you allot it. Like if you have to pick up red lines and you have 2 hours and you have to do it all in 2 hours, like you will hurry through and you will get it done. But if you have the whole rest of the
Mhm.
day, like you might take the whole
Yeah.
day to do it. So I feel like when you have less time, you just are forced to be more efficient and productive.
Yeah. So let's talk about our undergrad years just a little bit. We won't go too deep into that, but Laurel and I know each other from, oh gosh, let's see, 14 years, you think? 14 years ago? I think we met when I was a senior in undergrad and you were second year graduate. Is that right? We were
Yeah.
partners in studio. I think it was a graduate studio, right? I think I was in a graduate studio and I was an undergrad. And I'm just going to say it, Laurel. We were not very healthy. We were not healthy at all. I was not healthy at all. I'll put it that way. I mean, Laurel and I both were really passionate and still very passionate about what we do. I don't want to put the words in your mouth, so I'll just say me. I was very passionate about what I did. I was an overachiever. I was type A, just like you were describing. I wanted to be the best, have the best design, keep on going, like never ending. And so I remember we would pull all-nighters.
Oh, yeah. That was definitely the culture for architecture school when I was in college. All-nighters were the thing, like,
I mean, I remember sitting in your kitchen all night long designing, designing, and designing
oh, yeah.
multiple times. Your boyfriend's kitchen, your kitchen.
Oh my gosh. I just had
Uh-oh.
a memory of actually when I was in undergrad,
Uh-oh.
and I guess this was undergrad, and couple friends and I had the opportunity to go to Taliesin with one of our professors, and
Where is that? Where's Taliesin? What is that?
Arizona. It's a Frank Lloyd Wright school.
Oh, okay.
So we also tacked on this trip to LA so that we could go to 𝗙𝗏. And we stayed in LA at we got someone who had gone to 𝗙𝗏 to connect us, who was one of our professors, to connect us with like a friend or old student there that we could crash with. And he was in his senior year and he had this big project due, and he was like, you can crash my place if I can use your computers for rendering. And literally we got there and he had like this card table set up with like multiple computers on it rendering so that he could finish his like final project boards the next day.
Did you know this guy?
No, no, no. That was like how we first met. Yeah.
That's so weird, yet so normal.
So we the two of us and our friend who wasn't even in architecture school all brought our computers so that he could use them for
Oh
for rendering.
my god.
So yes, that was the level, and he was pulling an all nighter for that.
So can we talk about normalization in architecture school? Can we talk about that for a minute? Because that's actually what my first podcast was about how culture of undergrad architecture school normalizes a lot of weird things.
oh yeah,
Can you reflect back on that and tell me what was normalized that you think is really weird that it was normalized?
wow, I hadn't thought about. I think it kind of the starchitect culture and the just the way that certain architects or styles were kind of worshipped and followed so dogmatically almost, and just rewarding kind of those who went along with that style or bought into this whole system. Architecture isn't the culture that, we came up in, I guess. It wasn't just about the design, the process. It was about having just the personality and the style and all. There was so much more to it than just design and caring about the design. I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Do you get that vibe from any of our professors, and how certain professors were just worshipped because they had gone to certain school or worked at a certain office, and certain offices were idolized, certain architects, and people would just sacrifice themselves to the folks who could afford to go work for a free internship for a famous architect and pay to go stay somewhere international or in another state in New York to kind of work for free. That was rewarded.
Okay, let's stop there. This is hot. This is heavy. I'm loving this. So, what message does that send when we're sending interns to work at firms? I don't care if it's a architect firm or not, for free. Like, what message is that sending to both the firm and to the intern?
Well, you're disposable. It's just like what we were talking about at the beginning of this. You're absolutely disposable. They're literally not paying you anything. They'll find somebody else. They'll find some other student that'll work for free. They'll find some other sucker that just wants to have that name of that firm on their resume because everybody plays into that culture. I don't know. I don't have the words for it, and I haven't really thought about this in a while. So you're throwing this out. I haven't thought about architecture school a lot in a while because my role is I have taken a different path, and so I haven't been and we were talking about breastfeeding earlier. When I was breastfeeding, this became super apparent to me because I joined all of these Facebook groups for moms in architecture because I had just become a new mom. I joined breastfeeding moms, or I learned so much from other moms about. I was traveling everywhere. I had to pump, and I nursed for 16 months and traveled at least once a month on for a conference or some work trip, if not 3 times a month. And so because of that, and because of joining those communities and connecting with other women, I realized, like you were saying, about all of the crap working conditions that so many architects and, mom architects are still in. because I was lucky enough not to be in that because, you know, I work at an architecture firm, but it is a business that provides a service to clients and relationships are valuable. And, we get a lot of our work from repeat business. We have good teams that help one another out. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all people and we're all, here to make a living and do good work, right? Like, and it's not about killing yourself over trying to win the most prizes or, it's not the like glamorous work that's on the cover of magazines, but like I go to work every day and yeah, and I love the people that I work with. I, am learning new skills. I'm challenged. I'm given an opportunity to kind of direct, to impact the culture of the team that I'm a part of. That's what it's about to me at the end of the day. And I can say when I got out of architecture school, I realized like I kind of started to see more behind the curtain of this, right? Like I wasn't able to to intern for free. I couldn't afford to, like that trip that I, mentioned going to Taliesin, like that was big, and going to 𝗙𝗥𝗘𝗘, that was a big deal for me to be able to do that.
Mhm. Financially and other.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, both. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like I couldn't, like I had many friends who their parents could just afford to send them to study abroad and like if free internships to get that on their portfolio.
It makes me very, very happy to hear you say, "I am fulfilled and I'm doing all of these things. I'm impacting culture. I'm working with great individuals. I'm fulfilling my passion. I'm
Yeah.
contributing to society." I don't think you said that, but I'm gonna put those words in your mouth. It makes me so happy to hear you say that because do you know how many female architects have reached out to me within the last 6 months saying the exact opposite? What that tells me is that there are firms out there that you can go and work for and that you don't have to deal with this crap. And if you're dealing with this crap, very sorry from the bottom of my heart that you have dealt with that, but there are other options, and let's move forward with other op
Move on.
move on.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's hard when you're in the middle of it and when you're in the deep dark of it, and if you've had the experience where you only hear, "Well, this is architecture. We did this back in my day."
Oh God, no.
Hell no. It's 2024. Hell no, right? Like, you're a living example of you can be a female architect. Correct me if I'm wrong, it might be hard, but you can be fulfilled in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I think that if you are in a position that you're not and you have in any way the means to like start your own thing or go on your own, I feel like you should. If you don't have an option, like if there's literally nothing near you geographically and you can't move and you can't do something remote, then I would encourage you to like forge that path and like create that opportunity for others to embrace kind of a more progressive and fulfilling work culture for architecture because there definitely are a lot of firms that are amazing and wonderful. And this is what I was going to say earlier. So when I finished grad school, I moved to New York City and I was working for this as a sales rep for a manufacturer. And so I would go and call on, and I had to cold call in New York City on architecture and engineering firms.
Mhm.
And all the firms that I had thought were so cool and doing such good work, like 9 times out of 10, when you went in there, the atmosphere was miserable. But I would say 90% of the people in there seemed like they were disposable. Like nobody was happy. People were miserable. You can tell that by how people interact with each other and with you. And I have great sympathy now for reps that have to cold call in my firm, right? But still, like, yeah, I just really kind of realized actually, I always thought, how much I would dream to work here, but like, I would never actually want to work there. When I did get back into the design side of things and pursued getting my license, I never worked at a big, huge firm, and I never worked at a firm that was like a star architect. I'm doing air quotes again. Firm.
Mhm. Yeah, but you're fulfilled.
Absolutely, yeah,
Are you happy?
yes, and with my career choices, yes.
Sorry,
That was
for some
really weird. How did
you're
that
not gonna
happen?
There were little balloons that came up on Laurel's screen. That's why we both started laughing. But I think also there's all this conversation that goes on, and I don't even know how to describe it, but almost pushing individuals from school, almost brainwashing them to think that the ultimate goal is to work at these Starchitect
Yes.
places. And the ultimate goal is to create these amazing museums, right?
Yes.
In reality, you have to find why are you an architect? That's what you have to find. And you have to go towards that. It's nobody else's dream. It's if somebody else tells you that you need to work at this architecture firm, that's their dream, not yours. And if your dream is working in healthcare, I'm raising my hand right now because that's what I did and I loved it. Although a lot of my other colleagues were like, "No, that's not design. You have to, don't work in healthcare." Well, my passion was helping other individuals through architecture. And my passion was healthcare for many other reasons, and I won't get into that detail. But find why you're in architecture and go in that direction. Find that and keep going. And Laurel, I think you're a living example of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that architecture is just such a phenomenal field and career choice because the skills that you learn as an architect, being trained as an architect, this concept of design problem solving and from the project management side, like managing all the different kind of conflicts and what it takes to kind of put together a project, like that is such a valuable skill and can lend itself outside of architecture to all sorts of other things too. But even if you stay in architecture, there's so many different things you can like really hone your skill in and focus on. The work that I do is hyper focused around materials. So I am really into learning about materials attributes and how they contribute to or harm our planet, people, ecosystems. Like that's the very niche area that I've kind of gone into, but like everything's made up of materials, right?
I've had the honor of seeing you pave your way to where you're at now, and it was not a straight line.
Definitely not. Definitely not a straight line. But I think that, like, as you move through your career and depending on where you are and who you're exposed to and like what your interests are, your path unfolds in a way that's unique to you. And, everything like the position that I'm in and the multiple hats that I wear and the roles that I play and the kind of unique, I guess, day to day look of my job is just because I followed those things, right? I followed those things instead of following, here's your prescribed linear career path. And even if like it wasn't very clear that like there wasn't a position that existed, I created a position.
You created it. Yes. I know you did. I remember experiencing that with you. Remember we went through titles?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? You were like, "Okay, this is what I wanna do, like, let's brainstorm some titles."
Yeah, yeah. And I think you also like introduced me to some other architects.
Yeah, Erica, yeah.
Yes, to Erica.
She's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
I love her. So amazing. You should have her. You should totally have her on your
I
podcast.
will, I will.
She would have so many wonderful things to talk about.
Well, I think the big picture here, Laurel, that you've given my audience is pave your own flippin' way, and if it's not there, create it.
Absolutely.
Create it. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up because you and I could be on here for hours and hours and hours, and I would love it. But I'm gonna wrap it up with this one final question. And the question is, what would you tell the younger version of your architecture self?
Get some sleep.
That's coming from a true mom. Get some sleep. Don't pull those all-nighters. Take some melatonin and get some sleep.
Lay off the Monster energy drink.
Oh, Lord. If I had $1 for every Monster energy drink, the white ones that I drank throughout my life. All right, Laurel, thank you so, 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 so much for being on this podcast. I'm so grateful to have you as a friend and a leader and a mentor in my community. And I think you're going to impact so many people more than you have already. So thank you for being on here.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Laurel.
Bye.
Architects, This podcast is the culmination of the most creative minds in the world. The planning and programming of this content is extensive, and I'm proud to be a small part of the change that's happening in our profession. If you want to be a part of this change, the very best thank you can give the Healthy Architect is giving us a 5-star review and sharing this episode with a colleague. When you give us a 5-star review and you share this podcast, you are playing a role in changing our industry, one architect at a time. Be happy, be healthy, and take action towards a more fulfilling career. See you next week on the Healthy Architect Podcast.